Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Shalom. I'm David Mencer, Israeli government spokesman for the National Public Diplomacy Directorate here in the Office of the Prime Minister. For today, Monday, 18th of November, day 409 of the October 7th war. A couple of points from me and then we'll go straight to your questions. Firstly, a reminder of our war aims while we are fighting this war. The war will continue until all of our goals are met. The return of our hostages, dismantling of Hamas's governmental and military capabilities, and removing the terrorist threat to Israel, and the return of our residents to their homes in the north safely as well. Our soldiers are operating boldly and bravely to bring back our hostages and eliminate the terrorist threat to our citizens. So let me start today with the tragic names of the fallen amongst Israel's armed forces. It is with regret that I share with you that since the start of this war, Israel's fallen soldiers have unfortunately risen to 798. All of the boys behind me fell fighting Hezbollah in southern Lebanon, but also in northern Gaza. Captain Itai Markovich was 22 and from Kochav Yair. First Sergeant Dror Chen was 20 years old and from Gan Chaim. First Sergeant Nir Gofel was 20 and from Dimona. Sergeant Shalev Yitzchak Sagron was 21 and from Sderot. First Sergeant Sraya Elboim was 21 and from Mechola. Sergeant Yoav Daniel was 19 and from Nahariya. Lieutenant Ivry Dickstein was 21 and from Eli, and Sergeant Ori Nisanovich was 21 and from Jerusalem. Now, these boys fell fighting Hamas in northern Gaza. Sergeant First Class in the Reserves, Idan Kenan, was 21 from Ramat Gan. Sergeant Yogev Pazi was 22 and from Givot Bar. And Staff Sergeant Noam Eitan was 21 years old and from Hadera. The Prime Minister expressed the sentiments of the nation that he was heartbroken at these losses. The achievements of the military campaign are many, but this war has exacted an extremely heavy price. Each of these faces behind me is an entire life, a son, a brother, a grandson. Our hearts are with the bereaved families. May their memories be a blessing forever. Next, an operational update. In the last hour or so, the IDF has shown details of Hezbollah underground terrorist infrastructure containing dozens of launchers, rockets and weapons uncovered in southern Lebanon. Now, our limited, localized, targeted ground raids in southern Lebanon have removed serious threats to northern Israel. In these latest revelations, available on the IDF's Telegram feed, IDF troops scanned the mountainous areas where Hezbollah concealed dozens of its combat compounds, both above and below ground. Our soldiers found multi-barrel launchers, mortars, rocket caches, and military equipment used in Hezbollah's attacks against Israel over the past year. Now, the IDF has just published this evidence, extensive underground terrorist infrastructure where Hezbollah stored weapons and established living quarters, including pictures of a kitchen stockpiled with food supplies. It's ever more clearer that Hezbollah sought to invade this country for another October 7th-style massacre, but only worse. Thankfully, thank God, the IDF have thwarted it. Next, an update from Kogat and Israel's humanitarian work in Gaza. In the last 24 hours alone, 137 humanitarian aid trucks went in via Kerem Shalom and the Erez crossings 24 of these trucks entered northern Gaza. The trucks arrived from Jordan, Egypt, and Israel. 32 trucks were collected from the Gazan side of Kerem Shalom by international organizations, but still, 820 trucks worth of aid are awaiting collection from the Gazan side of Kerem Shalom. So, with the challenges that the UN aid agencies, organizations experience in distributing aid, we here in Israel are working together on various measures that will facilitate the transfer of this aid from the Kerem Shalom crossings to Gazans in need. For months now, aid has been piling up on the Gazan side after Israeli inspection, just waiting for collection and distribution. And we've been taking many measures to assist with the pickup of this aid. But our message is clear to the United Nations. Bring the lorries, Israel will get them in, and then get the aid out to those that need it. In addition, over the last 24 hours, 3 tankers of fuel and 6 tankers of cooking gas went in. Medical supplies were coordinated to northern Gaza for hospitals in the area. When it comes to bread, I've told you before that 12 bakeries are fully operational in Gaza, 4 bakeries in northern Gaza, and 8 in southern and central Gaza, producing close to 3 million pita loaves a day. Now, on water, we've been asked about water and drinking water in particular. The average amount of water available is as follows. 112 litres per person per day are available in northern Gaza. There's 39 litres per person per day in central Gaza, 24 litres per person per day in southern Gaza. On blood, 4 days ago, 1,000 units of blood entered Gaza in coordination with an international organization. The blood units are designated for the Nasser hospital in southern Gaza to support hospital operations and ongoing treatments. Over the last few months, more than 6,000 units of blood were facilitated into Gaza. COGAT is continuously facilitating medical and humanitarian responses for the civilian population in Gaza. So that's the end of our briefing today. We'll now take your questions. Please put them in the chat together with your news outlet. Okay, first question from here. First question here I can see is from David Clement at the News Forum in Canada. And David asks, Pope Francis urged for an investigation of genocide allegations over Israel's actions in Gaza. Does the Prime Minister's office have a response? Thank you for that question, David. Let me answer you this way. Israel has made clear that it has done everything in its power to make sure that that ordinary Gazans, that civilians, are not harmed. Indeed, and whenever a civilian is harmed, we see it as a tragedy. The opposite is true, though, from Hamas. Hamas initiated a genocide against this country. Their stated aim is the definition of a genocide, to wipe this country off the face of the earth, as is the aim of Iran, to erase this country. That is the dictionary definition of a genocide. Now, Hamas sees harm caused to civilians as a clear strategy. They wish there were 10 times more casualties when it comes to civilians. Indeed, they, even in their casualty figures, they lump civilians and their own terrorists together. Indeed, Sinwar, the arch-terrorist himself, Yahya Sinwar, the Hamas leader, is listed as a casualty in the Hamas figures. So Hamas systematically violates international law and commits a war crime by using their own civilian infrastructure and the entire population of Gaza as a human shield for their terrorist activities. Now, the data itself, which is quoted many times by international media from the information ministry in Gaza, look, it's nothing more than the media arm of Hamas. and they systematically report inflated figures on casualties, and they cannot be trusted. The very fact that that deaths caused by natural causes are also included in those figures is symptomatic of the fact that these figures cannot be trusted, they are untrue, they are routinely inflated, and they should not be quoted by international media. Okay, next question is from Joel Pollock. From Breitbart News, how close would you estimate a ceasefire agreement to be in Lebanon? Thank you for that question, Joel. When it comes to Lebanon, you know that our aim when it comes to Lebanon and Hezbollah is to get our people home, to get the rocket fire stopped, the mortars stopped, the UAVs stopped. So on negotiations for a ceasefire, in Lebanon, the United States and other countries are leading the negotiations to return quiet to the north. But we'll be very straight with you. The military campaign will continue until the immediate threat from Lebanon is removed. And our people, Israelis living in their own sovereign territory, in their own homes, can safely return to their homes. That's when the conflict will end in our north, not a moment before. Next question from Dan Williams at Bloomberg. When the Jabalia operation concludes, will Israel allow civilians displaced from the area to return? Thank you for that question, Dan. Our objective is to break Hamas. We've made that very, very clear. We know that we have shattered 23 of their 24 battalions, but the remnants of those battalions have reformed in northern Gaza particularly. We have already significantly broken the Hamas effort in Jabalia. For further details on that, you're best to contact the IDF, who have the on-the-ground expertise on what's going on in Gaza. But let me put it this way. Look, our two main goals when it comes to Gaza are, firstly, the rescue of our hostages, and then looking forward to the day after this war when Hamas is no longer in charge in Gaza. So Hamas so without Hamas as a leading factor in Gaza, we are in close contact with our partners in the US and the region to make sure that the day after the war will be a positive starting point for people on both sides of our border, Israelis and Gazans. And at this point, the IDF is on the ground in the Netzarim corridor and fighting terrorists in northern Gaza and in the south in Rafah, but in the north in Jabalia and Beit Lahia. And we will do everything in our power to keep civilians out of harm's way. Hamas, on the other hand, encourage their civilians to stay in place, to act as a human shield. Our message is very, very clear to those civilians. When the IDF tells you that it's safer to move, you do better to listen to the IDF than Hamas. Hamas hate Gazans. They will fight till the last Gazan. We're trying to save Gazans, to end Hamas for a better future for both of our peoples. Next question is from Hannah Julian from the Jewish Press. US envoy Amos Hochstein is expected to arrive in Israel on Wednesday with a ceasefire proposal signed by the Lebanese government, but not signed by Hezbollah. Is Israel planning to sign this document? Thank you for that question, Hannah. I think I dealt with that question in an earlier question from Joel Pollock. Now, when it comes, Joel, you also asked the second question. In what way did the alleged leaks about Hamas strategy hurt rather than help Israel's national security? And let me read that again. I'm not sure I understood that question. In what way did the alleged leaks about Hamas's strategy hurt rather than help Israel's national security? Joel, perhaps you could elucidate your question. I'm not quite sure I understood what it is you're getting at. But let me say this about Gaza and what's going on right now. Look, Israel is doing everything it can to bring back all of our 101 hostages, the living and the dead alike. You know that there are women amongst them, there are children amongst them, there are the elderly amongst them, and they're still being cruelly held more than 400 days in Hamas captivity. And we know that these psychological terror videos, which they released last week, are evidence of the unimaginable cruelty of Hamas and its partners, Islamic Jihad, who are holding our hostages captive under horrific conditions, placing them in grave danger and in violation of international law. Every moment of their captivity is a violation of international law. Now look, the negotiations for the return of our hostages and the discussions led by the US and the mediating countries continue. It's our attempt to reach a framework for the return of our hostages, and it will also always align with our war objectives. Hamas want to stay in power. That is not an option. That is not an option, because Hamas's stated aim is to carry out October the 7th again. When they say it, we believe it. So that's not an option. Now, Hamas continue, and this was reiterated by Jake Sullivan and Mr. Blinken, Secretary of State. They are continuing to impose impossible conditions, and that is what is preventing progress towards an agreement. So, by eliminating the heads of Hamas, Sinwar, Daesh, and the other deadly, evil leaders that initiated this massacre and this war, we're sending an extremely clear message to all of Gaza and to the rest of Hamas. Israel will settle accounts with anyone who promotes terrorism against our citizens. That is true now, and that'll be true at the end of this war. The Prime Minister has said, and this is evidenced actually by the video which was released last week of Sasha. It's appalling video. He was made to read out those words. But what Islamic Jihad and their bosses in Hamas that seek to sow discord amongst us, that's what they're trying to do with this video. They're trying to use psychological warfare on the hostage families, and their purpose is to apply internal and external political pressure on our government here. They've made it very, very clear. You just have to watch those videos to see it. They're trying to tear us apart from within and to continue the war until further notice, until Israel is defeated. But let me tell you, Joel, the great majority of Israel's citizens are not falling into this Hamas trap, this Islamic Jihad trap. They know that we are fully committed. This country is fully committed to achieving the objectives of this war, to eliminate Hamas, to return all of our hostages home, and to ensure that Gaza can never constitute a threat to this country ever again, as well as I've mentioned, getting our people home in the north and in the south securely into their own homes. Look, the message should go out from this podium now that Israel will stand together, and with God's help, we will be successful and we will win. So, Joel, you've elaborated. If the leak suggested that Hamas was playing psychological games with the hostages, surely that helped Israel by exposing Hamas's tactics and highlighting the brutality for the whole world. How could such a leak have hurt Israeli security, especially as many Israelis understood what the Hamas was doing? Thank you, Joel. I think I've answered that question, spoken about this psychological warfare which Hamas are trying to inflict on this country, using our poor hostage as a mouthpiece in the most appalling fashion, of psychological terrorism, actually. So I've given you that answer. Okay, so it doesn't appear to be any more questions. So with that, thank you for joining us, ladies and gentlemen. We'll have another briefing next time. In the meantime, do please stay safe. You can contact us for other questions or interviews in the usual way. And thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Thanks for watching. Drop a comment below. Don't forget to like, share, and hit subscribe to stay updated with our latest content. Until next time, stay informed and inspired. This is Debunks signing off.